the Food and Drug Administration gave a fresh take on what it means to be, quote, healthy on Thursday, beating out Make America Healthy Again advocate Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who could be joining the Trump administration in exactly 1 month. The FDA's new definition of healthy foods must contain food from one or more food groups such as fruit, vegetables, grains, dairy, and protein. The rule also sets limits for added sugars as well as sodium and saturated fat levels that depend on the type of product, according to the FDA. FDA Commissioner Robert Califf said in a statement, quote, it's critical for the future of this country that food be a vehicle for wellness. Improving access to nutrition information is as important a public health effort the FDA can undertake to help people build healthy eating patterns. Trump's Health and Human Services Secretary pick, RFK Jr., has been a strong advocate for improving food quality and discouraging sugar and seed oils. Some of his proposals are getting pushback from some food and sugar lobbies, of course. Right before the presidential election, RFK Jr. took to X and wrote, quote, the FDA's war on the public health is about to end. So certainly this has been a topic of conversation. RFK Jr. has built a career both in talking about vaccines, but then also too, something where I think you have a lot of Democrats in the past who have signaled a willingness that he is in the right when it comes to all the additives that we see in food coloring, dyes, processed foods, and there could be some level of agreement on that front, Amber.
Yeah, and he's talked about chemicals being used in crop production and things like that as well. And I think maybe the FDA might be trying to get out ahead of him a little bit with these new guidelines, trying to show that they're on the side of making America healthy again. Maybe some of them are trying to keep their jobs. We'll see. I'm not sure about this yet. I'd have to see, what foods exactly qualify. It seems kind of vague that it just has to contain something from one or more food groups, such as fruit, vegetables, grains, dairy, and protein. I mean, there's a lot of wiggle room within there.
There certainly is.
And the FDA has a notorious history of getting things wrong when it comes to nutrition, whether it was the huge no-fat fad of the 1990s, where things replaced fat with sugar and got a bunch of people addicted to high fructose corn syrup, or whether it was the food pyramid that you and I grew up on, where grains and bread and pasta were the building blocks of your diet, and fats and protein were all the way at the itty-bitty top of the triangle. Now it's basically an inversion of that that we understand is the most healthy way to eat.
Well, and certainly, I think, to your point, we've also seen a decline in the faith of these agencies because of that, and understandably so. I think, as more research comes out, as we grow older as a population, the FDA plays an incredibly important role in terms of drug safety, drug protections, but it is also interesting, to your point, to see the changing advice that we've seen just in our lifetime of nutrition and where things stand. I think we can all agree that, healthy foods are healthy foods, fruits and vegetables that are fresh, that are not processed. Are critically important about this. And I do think it is interesting, the timing, to your point, Amber, in advance of what we will likely see are some contentious hearings for that HHS pick RFK Jr. before the Senate Help Committee. Bernie Sanders is the incoming ranking member on that committee. I think Bill Cassidy is the incoming chair of that committee. But there will certainly be some fireworks. This will be a part of it, in addition to all of the other things that RFK has espoused over the years.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, the FDA and their dietary guidelines only recently, I think within the past 3 to 5 years, I mean, don't quote me on that, but it's fairly recent, definitely after 2010, that they started advising parents to introduce potential allergens to infants between the ages of 6 months and a year, because prior to that, it was believed that avoiding things like peanut butter, peanuts would prevent an allergen, but actually it reduced a child's immunity and led to a severe spike in peanut allergies. I think I've mentioned this book so many times on the show, but I love it. Dr. Marty McCary's new book, Blind Spots, highly recommend.
Who's now up for an appointment in the incoming Trump
Exactly.
I think is he FDA?
He is FDA.
Or NIH? Okay,
I think FDA.
Yeah,
and
you're right.
and he wrote in his book about how this misguidance led to like a 300%, if not more, increase in peanut allergies in children because parents were advised to not give them peanut butter. And it's something so obvious and simple, but I mean, to your point, when people hear these things over and over again and then they find out 5 years, 10 years down the line that it was completely opposite of what they should have been doing, that reduces trust in these institutions.
I feel like every other day I see a report that says drinking coffee extends your life, drinking red wine extends your life. And then the next day it's like another report saying don't drink any coffee.
Red wine's going to kill you.
Exactly right. So, again, having some sort of basis of fact, which is what we charge these agencies to be a part of, is critically important. And one of the reasons why I think we're going to see so much contention, and I said it in the intro, Amber, is the power of the sugar lobby, the beverage lobby that we've seen in the past.
And the farm lobby.
And the farm lobby.
With corn
Exactly
syrup.
Right. And it will be interesting to see if RFK is indeed successful in his bid to become the next HHS secretary. To your point, Dr. Marty as well, with these views that run counter to industry in a lot of ways, the pressure campaign that we'll see in the lead up to those hearings, and then if they are successful, the pushback that we're going to see from industry, mass amounts of TV spending. Anytime you take on an industry like that, they're incredibly powerful. I wonder, Amber, to your point, how successful these folks will actually be.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be easy. I think one of the things that does help RFK is having these really well-respected doctors in sort of corollary cabinet positions, whether it's Dr. Marty McCary or Dr. Jay Bhattacharya.
Dr. Jeanette Neshwat, my buddy, who's going to be the next Surgeon General.
Yeah, I mean, she's getting a little bit of pushback due to some gender ideology stuff, but we'll see what happens with that. But nonetheless, obviously, those three, as well as some of the other appointments, I mean, even Dr. Oz, to an extent, prior to his TV time, had a well-established pedigree in serving as doctors. And
I mean, he was an ER, he has a number of patents and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I mean, people give him a hard time because of like the Oprah sort of timeline, but all four of those people have great educations, have great experience working as doctors in the medical field. There will be outside advisors, I'm sure, who have a lot of medical expertise that will help give some credibility for people who are concerned about RFK's maybe more fringe views that they don't necessarily subscribe to. If you have these doctors around him saying, no, actually, he's right on this issue, I think that will help string along some of the people who are skeptical.
Yeah, and it is interesting, and I would argue that Dr. Oz, I think, should be maybe at NIH or FDA or something like that, probably not running CMS.
I don't disagree with that.
But we'll see. But certainly Donald Trump likes to have camera-ready experts, well-versed in these subjects, to change and shift public policy. So we'll see how that process plays out.
We sure will, and here's to hoping that we can help make America healthier, because the obesity rates and chronic illness rates, I think we all can agree, are not
Just
good.
don't take my coffee.
Good deal. All right. We're going to have a lot more to cover here on Rising. Please stick around. We'll be back after the break.